You've got good, good energy knocking at your door. You've got good, good energy. We can make it more. We can make it more. We can make it more. Good energy.
Exhale down. Riders, have an amazing, amazing day. Take care.
Scott would, when they would go to Matt Duchesne played for Brampton when he was in the OHL, and they would go up to the Brampton games. They would always supposed to be back at a certain time for the hospital for sick children, but never made it back on time. Finally, the hospital just knew and said, okay, we'll let you in. Don't worry about being here on time. He always was in the dressing room with Matt Duchesne after the games, and they had a special bond. They were two of the biggest hockey fans I ever met, and they certainly hit it off. And he wanted to pass on these words. He wanted to emphasize how much Dawson's bravery and strength still moves and inspires him. His sticks are now made with a special logo and a DH on them. The initials on his stick are a constant reminder of Dawson's spirit, which was so special and always positive. He says it helps him through any adversity that he faces. Dawson had a chance last fall to see Matt play his first NHL game in Toronto. So in concluding, as Matt says, his spirit will always be with those who had the opportunity to know him. And I hope all of you know a little bit about Dawson, a little bit more today, and I think you will be affected by Dawson as we ride into Haliburton County, where he grew up and had a huge impact. At some point today, you are going to laugh. A good, hard laugh. And you know that Dawson's with you. At some point today, you're going to overcome adversity, some sort of challenge, and you know that Dawson was with you. And at some point today, you will all help someone else and give them a pat on the back and care for each other, and you know that Dawson was with you. Thank you so much.
And the same story happens again and again around courage and choice. Then come on up, and they've got this thing called Play It Forward.
So I apologize, I haven't really prepared anything. I've got a zillion stories to tell though, and so we'll wing it, and hopefully it'll affect you and inspire you to some degree, like the story of Dawson did for me, and I can look around and see if everybody else here is affected. Our son Alex was he had just turned 10, I guess. Sorry, he had just turned 10 in March '97. He was a hockey player, played soccer. He was a great hockey player, and I was his coach. I was on the ice with him, and he hit another kid, and came away with a Charlie horse. And the Charlie horse stayed and stayed and stayed, and we couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And after a couple of weeks, we saw a couple doctors, and then moved on, and then finally saw one doctor who did some imaging, and he said, you know, I don't want to frighten you, but you need to get yourself down to sick kids. So we did, and spent a long night there, and again some imaging and everything, and by the end of that night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and Alex said, I just want to go home, I just want to go home. And by the end of that night, a doctor came and delivered the worst word you could ever hear, and it just, honest to God, you know, it really does feel, you've heard this said before, I'm sure, but it feels like a kick in the gut. He said, we think that your son has a malignancy in his leg. And as it turned out, he did. It what's called osteosarcoma. bone cancer in his left leg. Big tumor down near his knee and another one up near his hip. And as the next couple weeks unfolded, as if it wasn't bad enough, my father-in-law died within those weeks as well. And anyways, the imaging continued, and turned out that Alex had it in both lungs. It had progressed to both lungs, and later on it hit a rib, went into his right hip as well, went into his right ankle, and hugely painful cancer that he bore with a great grace and dignity, and like Dawson, caring for people around him. It's amazing, you know, these kids just go through so much. And, you know, Alex would be sitting there with in sick kids, in the pain that he was in, and, you know, puking from the chemo, and, you know, there was kids there who had much more visible problems. I don't even know what they were, but, you know, that were out to here for whatever reason, and missing limbs and so on, and he just was worried about them. And even he, on our trips in from Oakville to the hospital, he hated the drive-in, and he hated it to a large part because as we drove under the train tracks up University Avenue, invariably we'd end up seeing a homeless person on the street, and he just couldn't stand you know, that fact. He wanted to do something for those people. In any case, we went through rounds of chemo, and later surgery where his whole left femur was replaced with a prosthetic, an implant, titanium implant. His right hip was replaced. His bottom part of his right fibula was removed. I guess his left knee, or his left knee was replaced. He went through 2 surgeries, in fact. One on the left side of his body, where there was 2 surgical teams, one working on his lower half, replacing his femur, and the other was a general surgery team that was removing a rib, pulling his lung out, taking all the tumors out of his lung and putting it back in. 14-hour surgery, and then 6 weeks later, or 5 weeks later, had the same thing done on the right side of his body. And he just bore it with a great grace and dignity, and he managed his way through it. And we thought we had him. We thought we had him back as of January 98, I guess, or 2008. I always do that. He had about 9 months of being cancer-free, and then one of the risks of the leukemia that a lot of these kids go through is the cure is, you know, I call it carpet bombing. They go into this leukemia and they kill everything, or with the chemo, and they kill everything in the body. It's carpet bombing. It's not smart bombing by any means. It's they really beat the crap out of you. And one of the risks was that he could develop leukemia, and as it turned out, he did. In November of 2008, and 3 months later, in February last year, he died. But he continues to inspire us, and yeah, he's the reason that we're all here and trying to do good things going forward. I just want to talk briefly about the people who take care of them, about the caregivers. And we've got, I guess, 2 real medical caregivers on our team. Kate Fletcher, who was his physio and tried to get him back up walking and going as well as he could. And she was going to do it before that the leukemia knocked him for a loop. She did great work. Need a physio. She probably has cards here. And Alex is, both during his illness and in his last days, he was cared for, and really cared for, and we were cared for by Dr. Ann Bayless she's the head of pediatrics from Credit Valley, and you know, she did everything that a doctor could do for Alex until it couldn't be done, and then she continued to take care of him and escort him as well as he could to the end, and we just can't thank her enough for that. And I want to talk about one other caregiver, and this is why we arrived late this week. My dad died on Sunday, and he's 80 years old. He lived a fantastic life. He was, well, he was, first of all, he brought up 12 children in the family, and he was a caregiver in that way. He took care of us and did a great job. He was also an obstetrician. He delivered over 10,000 babies into this world, and you know, some of whom, most of whom, have the good fortune to be healthy and happy and live great lives, and some of whom have difficulties that they run into. And you know, it's our great privilege, us as Axel and us collectively, to be here and to have these legs and have these arms and these hearts that work well. And you know, when you're out there suffering today at all, yeah, I think of this every time I have any problems at all on the bike. I think of what these kids have to go through, and that makes it a hell of a lot easier. And we've got the privilege, and frankly, we've got the responsibility to go out and do something that can help these kids and help others. So I know that's what we're doing, and I know that's what you're doing, and I thank you so much for it.
The Pace family. Okay, we're gonna get started here today.
You've got good energy knocking at your door. You've got good energy. We can make it more.